Hi everyone, and welcome to StudioJake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Welcome to my vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture, from film to television to anime to animation to celebrity news, and so much more. Before I dive into the topic, be sure to like this video, leave me a comment, tell me what you think, share it out to all your friends, and I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, so I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. I am way over halfway there with over 770 subscribers. So just a little bit more to get me over the 1,000 subscriber mark. I would really appreciate it. Okay, so diving into this topic, I always say one of the four main contributors to my nosedive into pop culture has been Batman, Spider-Man, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Transformers. And then, of course, I've discovered Star Wars, Star Trek, Firefly, anime, all throughout the years. But those were like my first four sort of introduction into this sort of nerd space, right? So when I was growing up, we lived in a small Texas town, and there was a local station that would rerun the 80s Transformers series. That was sort of my first introduction to Transformers, and we would watch it occasionally. But my biggest leap into the Transformers universe was on Saturday morning cartoons when the Beast Wars Transformers series aired. And from that, I just adopted a whole new love of the original. I love the Transformers movie, which of course stars the great Orson Welles as Unicron. And I get upset when I see a Transformers property, but Peter Cullen, who is the original voice of Optimus Prime, is not cast. It irks me even if the other person does an okay job. I'm like, no, Peter Cullen is Optimus Prime. As long as he is available, they should just blanket either him or Neil Kaplan for Optimus Prime. There's no in between. Gary Chalk in a pinch, I guess. He was the voice of Optimus Primal. But anyway, and of course Optimus Prime in the Unicron trilogy. I've got to clear that up. But anyway, one of the most recent things that happened in sort of Transformers new space is Transformers fans rejected IDW's change in the continuity. So when IDW, they inherited the Transformers IP from Dreamwave Comics, which also did G.I. Joe, and when Dreamwave Productions went out of business, IDW Publishing inherited them from Hasbro. They just kind of passed it along. So it's a real shame because Dreamwave Comics, their stuff was amazing. The Transformer Origin comics, The War Within, were fantastic. Their crossovers and what ifs were amazing. And then IDW comes along and they basically ruined Transformers. So they introduced a whole bunch of political correctness into a story about giant robots that can change into cars and trucks and animals. They just introduced all this politically correct nonsense. They did the same thing with G.I. Joe. Instead of bringing on seasoned writers like Simon Furman or Chuck Dixon who had worked on these properties, which, to be fair, they did get some decent artists during this time, except for G.I. Joe. They got really lame artists. So needless to say, and that wasn't true early on. Early on, they tried to continue the tradition that Dreamwave had done, sort of more darker, grounded stories. But then within the last few years, they really hired some stinker writers who, I've read fan fiction. I've written Transformers fan fiction that were better than some of the comic books that were coming from IDW there at the end. So they lost the license. And there was a lot of speculation on who would get it. At one time, Marvel Comics used to write the G.I. Joe and Transformers comics, so there's some speculation that it would go there. However, a couple of days ago, we found out that it was actually going to Image Comics specifically, the Skybound imprint that is run by Robert Kirkman, who, of course, created The Walking Dead. And I wrote this up on an article for Clownfish TV. It says, after IDW lost the license to release comic books based on Hasbro intellectual properties, including Transformers and G.I. Joe, there is rampant speculation on where the robots in disguise and the real American heroes would land. The mystery appears to be solved with the announcement that Image Comics imprint Skybound would bring Cybertron and Joe headquarters to life. So basically, Skybound Entertainment, they're doing this new series called Void Rivals, And apparently in the first issue, which I have not gotten my hands on yet, but apparently in the first issue they have a tease for what they're calling the Energon universe. So Dreamwave Comics and IDW Comics, they decided to keep Transformers and G.I. Joe separated with only occasionally crossovers, but they weren't considered canon to the main storyline. And similar to how it was in the 80s cartoon, right? We never saw them interact, although Cobra was teased in the storyline that takes place in 2010 within Transformers Season 3. But, outside of that, G.I. Joe was never directly referenced, right? And so, apparently, though, Image Comics is going to take a new look at it, and they're going to bring Transformers and G.I. Joe together for what they're calling the Energon universe. And apparently it's not just going to have the Transformers and G.I. Joe, there's going to be a few others. Now, I've talked about this before. I am not on the side of bringing the Transformers and the G.I. Joe together in sort of a cinematic universe or a comic book universe, specifically because they're so different. G.I. Joe is more action-based, and yeah, there is some sci-fi elements to it, but it's primarily action, definitely more military-angled. Obviously, Real American Hero, they're about a group of specially trained American soldiers who have to take on this global sort of criminal organization, Cobra, and stop them. And Transformers, like I said, it's a mech story about giant robots punching each other. And, there's a civil war on their home planet of Cybertron. The civil war has depleted the planet of resources. And so Optimus Prime takes a crew to find more resources. Megatron and his evil Decepticons follow along. And they end up crash landing on Earth. And, and then the battle for Earth begins. And Michael Bay films for whatever decided he made some bad decisions. So he decided to make the Transformers look more alien as opposed to their more sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? More straight-laced designed, where they still look like the vehicles when they transform. He wanted to make them look more like they're extraterrestrial. He decided a whole bunch of other things that I thought were kind of weird decisions, but he did try to stay close to the lore, although he failed because he obviously wasn't familiar with Transformers. And then with Bumblebee, they tried to make it a little closer to how it's going to be, and it seems like Transformers Rise of the Beast is going to be the same. I haven't seen it yet. It's gotten mixed reviews. Some people are telling me it's awesome and I shouldn't miss it as a Transformers fan. Other people are telling me, eh. Now, I will say, I do like Robert Kirkman's writing a great deal. Image Comics have tried to... Now, they do get politically correct occasionally, but they have sort of avoided, that, hypersensitivity to political issues that, make up the woke ideology. So, I mean, King Spawn outsold... When it came out, it outsold all the Marvel and DC titles that came out that month combined, I believe, is what they say. If I'm wrong about that, correct me in the comments. But I want to believe that, or I believe that when that story came out, that's how much fans were excited just for something new that had to do with Spawn. And who knows? It seems like Image Comics is going to head that direction, and I really hope that Robert Kirkman keeps that idea, right? I don't know why Skybound in particular was chosen, because Image Comics, they have a lot of great imprints, or just their main imprint being Image Comics. But I do hope that we see Transformers take a more grounded, more science fiction approach to their storytelling. They rely less on, the social mores of Autobots and Decepticons, because no one freaking cares about that. We might care about a few, like, the whole, because season 3 of Transformers was definitely setting up some sort of love triangle between Rodimus Prime, Springer, and RC, right? But, it's kind of interesting. I know that the comic books for a long time just decided that the Autobots were totally sexless. They just happen to look like, more masculine or more feminine, depending on the Transformer they were talking about. to me, that kind of removed what made them part of being sentient was, the gender binary. But, whatever the case may be, I hope that Robert Kirkman avoids that kind of intersection, that it will just be a good, solid Transformers, giant robots punching one another, and with G.I. Joe, a really good action, sort of in the vein of Expendables or Red. You never know what's going to happen with these, but I do look forward to seeing what they're going to do. Like I said, Robert Kirkman is a very talented writer, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and see where these two properties are going to go. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you'll give it a thumbs up, that you'll leave me a comment, tell me what you think, that you'll share it out with your friends, and of course, consider subscribing to StudioJake. I cover all kinds of nerd and pop culture topics, including film, television, anime, comic books, and so much more. I hope that you'll also head over to my main website, StudioJakeMedia.com, where I have even more news, views, and commentary. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, head over to my locals page. That's studiojakemedia.locals.com. It's the best way to support me. I'm trying to build a little community there. I have exclusive reviews and articles, so definitely head over there and check it out. And I'll see you next time, right here on Studio Jake.